In World War II, American families faced a crisis that most modern gardeners cannot imagine. Fertilizer was rationed. Chemical nitrogen went to making explosives. Phosphorus went to munitions. The supplies that farmers had depended on for decades suddenly disappeared. But here is what happened next. 20 million American families planted victory gardens. And those gardens did not just survive, they thrived. They produced 40% of all the vegetables consumed in the entire United States, 40%, from backyard gardens. During a war with no commercial fertilizer, the secret was not luck. It was not better seeds. It was not more sunlight. The secret was 10 composting designs that turned kitchen scraps and yard waste into perfect soil in 30 days or less. Modern composting takes 6 months to a year, sometimes longer. You pile up materials, you wait, you hope for the best. These wartime methods cut that time by 90%. The British Ministry of Agriculture produced films teaching these techniques. Sir Albert Howard published the science behind them in 1943. Ruth Stout perfected the laziest version that still worked. And today, almost none of this knowledge is common. I am about to change that. These are the 10 World War II compost designs that still create perfect soil in 30 days. Every single one of them works. Every single one of them is free, or nearly free. And every single one of them is faster than anything you are currently doing. Let us begin. Design number 1. The indoor method. This is the foundation of modern composting. It was developed by a British scientist named Sir Albert Howard. He spent 29 years in India perfecting it. In 1943, he published a book called An Agricultural Testament that explained exactly how it worked. That book became the Bible of organic farming. And the indoor method became the standard against which all other composting techniques are measured. Here is how it works. You build layers like a sandwich. The bottom layer is coarse material. Sticks, stalks, straw, about 6 inches deep. This creates air channels at the base. The second layer is green material. Kitchen scraps, fresh grass clippings, manure if you have it, about 2 inches deep. The third layer is brown material. Dried leaves, shredded paper, cardboard, about 2 inches deep. The fourth layer is a thin coating of soil, just a dusting. This introduces the microorganisms that do the actual work. Then you repeat. Green, brown, soil, green, brown, soil, until your pile is about 3 to 4 feet tall. The magic ratio is 30 to 1. 30 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen by weight. In practical terms, this means roughly 2 parts brown material to 1 part green material by volume. You water the pile until it feels like a wrung-out sponge, not dripping wet, not bone dry, about 50 to 60% moisture. Then you wait for days and turn it. Mix the outside to the inside, the top to the bottom. Turn it again every 4 days. Within 18 to 30 days, you have finished compost. Sir Albert Howard proved this worked on industrial-scale farms in India. 20 million American families proved it worked in backyard gardens during the war. Design number 2, the hot heap method. This is the fastest composting technique ever developed. It creates finished compost in 18 to 21 days, sometimes faster. The hot heap method was refined at the University of California, Berkeley in the 1950s, but the principles were well known during World War II. The British Ministry of Agriculture taught a simplified version in their wartime films. Here is the secret. A compost pile generates heat through bacterial activity. As microorganisms break down organic matter, they produce heat as a byproduct. A properly built pile reaches temperatures between 130 and 160 degrees Fahrenheit. At those temperatures, 3 important things happen. First, weed seeds die. Any seeds in your compost materials are destroyed. You will not accidentally plant weeds in your garden. Second, pathogens die. Disease-causing organisms cannot survive temperatures above 140 degrees. Third, decomposition accelerates dramatically. Thermophilic bacteria work 10 to 20 times faster than the bacteria that operate at cooler temperatures. To achieve these temperatures, you need 3 things. 1. Enough mass. The pile must be at least 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet. 1 cubic yard minimum. Smaller piles cannot retain enough heat. 2. The correct carbon to nitrogen ratio, 30 to 1. This gives bacteria the fuel they need to generate maximum heat. 3. Frequent turning. Every 2 to 3 days you turn the entire pile. This reintroduces oxygen, which the bacteria need to breathe. Without oxygen, they slow down. With oxygen, they accelerate. The hot heap method requires more work than other techniques. You are turning a large pile every few days, but the payoff is finished compost in less than 3 weeks. Design number 3, trench composting. This is the oldest composting method in human history. Archaeological evidence suggests humans have been burying organic waste for at least 5,000 years. During World War II, trench composting was popular because it required no bins, no turning, and no maintenance. You simply buried your waste and walked away. Here's how it works. Dig a trench about 12 inches deep. The width does not matter. It can be as narrow as a shovel blade or as wide as a garden bed. Fill the trench with kitchen scraps, soft yard waste, and any other compostable material. Avoid meat and dairy in shallow trenches, as they can attract animals. Cover with at least 8 inches of soil. Walk away. The material decomposes underground over the next 30 to 60 days. Soil organisms, earthworms, and bacteria break it down directly where your plants will grow. The advantage of trench composting is simplicity. There is no pile to manage, no turning, no monitoring temperatures or moisture levels. The disadvantage is that you cannot use the planting area immediately. You need to wait for decomposition to complete before planting in that spot. Victory gardeners solved this with a rotation system. They divided their garden into 3 sections. One section received buried waste. One section was actively decomposing. One section was ready for planting. Each year, the sections rotated. This gave them continuous planting space and continuous soil improvement with minimal effort. Design number 4, sheet composting, also known as lasagna gardening. This method creates new garden beds from scratch, using nothing but compostable materials, no digging required, no tilling, no removing grass or weeds. The technique was used extensively during World War II to convert lawns into victory gardens quickly. Here is how it works. You lay materials directly on the ground in layers, like building a lasagna. First, a layer of cardboard or thick newspaper. This smothers existing grass and weeds. Wet it thoroughly so it stays in place. Second, a layer of green material, kitchen scraps, fresh grass clippings, coffee grounds, about 2 to 3 inches deep. Third, a layer of brown material, dried leaves, straw, shredded paper, about 4 to 6 inches deep. Repeat the green and brown layers until your bed is about 12 to 18 inches tall. Water each layer as you build. The finished bed should feel like a damp sponge throughout. Then wait. In 30 to 60 days, the layers decompose into rich, dark soil. The cardboard disappears. The kitchen scraps disappear. What remains is a planting bed with perfect structure and abundant nutrients. The advantage of sheet composting is that you are building soil exactly where you need it. No wheelbarrows, no shoveling finished compost from one location to another. The disadvantage is that fresh beds are too hot and unstable for planting immediately. You need to wait for decomposition to slow before adding seeds or transplants. Design number 5, the 3-bin system. This is the most efficient composting setup for continuous production. It was taught in Victory Garden manuals and remains the standard for serious gardeners today. The concept is simple. You have 3 bins side by side. Each bin holds compost at a different stage of decomposition. Bin 1 is your active pile. This is where you add fresh materials. Kitchen scraps go here, yard waste goes here. You build this pile over the course of several weeks until it reaches critical mass. Bin 2 is your cooking pile. Once bin 1 is full, you stop adding to it and turn the contents into bin 2. This pile is actively decomposing. You turn it every few days to maintain heat and oxygen levels. And 3 is your finished pile. Once bin 2 has decomposed, you turn it into bin 3. This pile is curing. It is cooling down and stabilizing. In a few more weeks, it is ready to use. While bin 3 is curing, you are building a new pile in bin 1. While bin 2 is cooking, bin 3 is finishing. The system rotates continuously. With proper management, a 3-bin system produces finished compost every 30 to 45 days once it is established. The bins can be built from wooden pallets, wire mesh, cinder blocks, or any material that allows airflow. During World War II, Victory gardeners built them from scrap, lumber, old fencing, and recycled materials. The key is ventilation. Compost needs oxygen. Solid walls trap moisture and create anaerobic conditions. Open walls or gaps between boards allow air to circulate. Design number 6. Compost tea. This is not a composting method. It is a way to multiply the benefits of finished compost by extracting its nutrients and beneficial microorganisms into liquid form. Compost tea was used during World War II as a fast-acting fertilizer. When plants needed immediate nutrition, gardeners brewed tea rather than waiting for solid compost to break down further. Here is how it works. Fill a burlap sack or mesh bag with finished compost. About 1 part compost to 5 parts water. Submerge the bag in a bucket or barrel of water. Non-chlorinated water works best. Rainwater is ideal. Let it steep for 24 to 48 hours. Stir occasionally to introduce oxygen. Remove the bag. The remaining liquid is compost tea. Apply it directly to plant leaves as a foliar spray or pour it around the base of plants as a soil drench. Dilute it if the color is very dark. It should look like weak tea, not coffee. The advantage of compost tea is speed. Nutrients in liquid form are immediately available to plants. There is no waiting for soil organisms to break down solid matter. The disadvantage is that compost tea does not replace compost. It is a supplement, not a substitute. You still need solid organic matter to build soil structure over time. Design number 7. The Ruth Stout method. Ruth Stout was an American gardener who became famous for what she called no-work gardening. She started developing her method in the 1920s and perfected it through the 1940s. Her approach was radical. She never dug, she never tilled, she never turned a compost pile. She simply buried everything under a permanent layer of hay mulch and let nature do the work. Here is how it works. Cover your entire garden with 8 to 12 inches of spoiled hay. Spoiled hay is hay that has gotten wet and is no longer suitable for animal feed. Farmers often give it away for free or sell it cheaply. When you want to plant, push the hay aside, plant your seeds or transplants, and pull the hay back around the plants as they grow. When you have kitchen scraps, lift the hay, drop the scraps underneath, and replace the hay. That is the entire method. The hay slowly decomposes in place. It feeds the soil continuously. It suppresses weeds. It retains moisture. It creates a habitat for earthworms and beneficial insects. Ruth Stout claimed she spent less than an hour per week maintaining her garden once the system was established. The advantage is minimal labor. No bins, no turning, no hauling materials from one place to another. The disadvantage is time. The Ruth Stout method does not produce finished compost in 30 days. It produces it continuously over months and years. The soil improves steadily but slowly. However, I include it here because the technique was well established during World War II and remains one of the most effective long-term soil building strategies ever developed. Design number 8. Pit composting. This is similar to trench composting but uses a permanent pit instead of rotating trenches. During World War II, pit composting was popular in small yards where space was limited. A single pit could handle all of a family's organic waste year-round. Here is how it works. Dig a pit about 3 feet deep and 3 feet wide. The depth is important. Deeper pits retain more heat and decompose material faster. Line the bottom with coarse material for drainage, sticks, straw, or gravel. Add kitchen scraps and yard waste as they become available. Cover each addition with a layer of soil or brown material to control odors and discourage pests. When the pit is full, cover it completely with soil and let it decompose for 30 to 60 days. Meanwhile, dig a second pit nearby and repeat the process. The advantage of pit composting is that it is invisible. The entire process happens underground. There are no bins, no piles, no visible waste. The disadvantage is digging. Creating the initial pit requires significant effort. In heavy clay or rocky soil, this can be difficult. Design number 9. Worm composting, also called vermicomposting. This method uses earthworms to process organic waste into incredibly rich compost called worm castings. Worm composting was not widely practiced during World War II, but the science was understood. Charles Darwin wrote extensively about earthworms in 1881. Sir Albert Howard discussed their role in soil fertility in his 1943 book. Here is how it works. You build or buy a worm bin. This can be as simple as a wooden box with drainage holes and a lid. You add bedding material, shredded newspaper, cardboard, or coconut core. Moisten it until it feels like a wrung-out sponge. You add worms. Red wigglers are the most common species for composting. About 1 pound of worms per square foot of bin surface. You feed the worms your kitchen scraps. Fruit and vegetable waste, coffee grounds, tea bags, crushed eggshells. Avoid meat, dairy, and oily foods. The worms eat the waste and excrete castings. Within 30 to 90 days, depending on conditions, the bedding and food waste transform into dark, crumbly, incredibly nutrient-dense compost. Worm castings are more concentrated than regular compost. A little goes a long way. The advantage of worm composting is that it works indoors. You can process kitchen waste year-round, regardless of weather. The disadvantage is scale. Worm bins handle kitchen scraps efficiently, but cannot process large volumes of yard waste. The British Ministry of Agriculture taught it in their 1941 film, Making a Compost Heap. The method takes about 5 minutes to set up. It produces usable compost in 30 to 60 days with minimal maintenance. Add all your available green and brown materials in alternating thin layers. Do not worry about precise ratios, just alternate green and brown. Make the pile at least 3 feet in every dimension: height, width, and depth. Water thoroughly. The pile should be damp throughout. Cover with a layer of soil, old carpet, or burlap to retain heat and moisture. Turn once after 2 weeks. Turn again after another 2 weeks. Check for finished compost after 30 days. The quick heap is not as fast as the hot heap method. It does not reach the same temperatures, but it requires far less effort. For victory gardeners who were also working full-time jobs and raising families during wartime, this balance of speed and simplicity was essential. Those are the 10 World War II compost designs that still create perfect soil in 30 days. The indoor method, the hot heap method, trench composting, sheet composting, the 3-bin system, Compost T, the Ruth Stout method, pit composting, worm composting, the quick heap. Each method has advantages and disadvantages. Some are faster, some are easier. Some work better in small spaces. Some scale to large gardens, but all of them work. 20 million American families proved that during World War II. They took garbage and turned it into gardens. They took rationing and turned it into abundance. They produced 40% of the nation's vegetables using nothing but kitchen scraps, yard waste, and these 10 simple techniques. The science has not changed since 1943. Sir Albert Howard's principles still apply. The 30-to-1 carbon-nitrogen ratio still works. The 140-degree thermophilic threshold still kills weeds and pathogens. What has changed is our memory. We forgot that composting can be fast. We forgot that it can be free. We forgot that ordinary people with no special training created perfect soil in 30 days during the most difficult period in modern history. Now, you remember, pick one of these methods and start today. If you want speed, use the hot heap. If you want simplicity, use the quick heap. If you want zero effort, try the Ruth Stout method. But start. Because the best fertilizer is not something you buy, it is something you make.